Welcome to Local Music Sunday Nights. This is a cool show. We've been doing it for over a year now. It's devoted to local musicians. We talk about their story and their music. I'm Gary Kelley. Tonight, the first drummer of Motley Crue, but I know he's going to correct me. The world's first flying drummer and an inventor of the flying drum machine. He's in the Guinness Book of Records for playing the drums upside down. You heard me right, playing the drums upside down at the sports arena in 1976. And he's also responsible for my wife and I meeting 25 years ago. So he is very special to me. I would not be having a good life without this man. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, it's Mr. Jack Valentine. Hi, Jack.
Hey, and let me correct you. Everybody that I meet say, weren't you the first drummer in Motley Crue? And I go, well, it's understandable how that story gets out, but I was the drummer in the first Motley Crue. There's a big difference. Me and a guy named Mick Mars were in a band once called Motley Crue, and we played together for 4 years, close to 4 years, in front of almost 200,000 people.
Wow.
Toured the country, and we played for a long time together in a band that was once called Motley Crue, but then that band broke up. And he kept the name and found the other three guys. So technically, you say I was the drummer, the first drummer in Motley Crue, but it was the same Motley Crue. So I have to qualify that.
Yeah. Well, you played in front of thousands of people, and that I have introduced you to people several times, and I love saying it.
But then they come up to me and they say, "So, what's Tommy Lee like?" And I go, "I've never met him. I've never met Tommy Lee. I'm sorry. I mean, I was the drummer."
He phoned it in.
Yeah. And then as far as the upside down drum thing is concerned, yes, I was the first flying drummer, which kind of makes me the Pete Best of Motley Crue in some people's eyes, because I don't know if you know who Pete Best is. Of course you do.
Yeah, the original drummer of the Beatles.
Now he played with John, Paul, and George, but it's not the same thing with me. I like to use the story. If George Harrison and Pete Best played in a band once called the Beatles, and then all of a sudden Pete Best decided he didn't want to do it anymore, George found John, Paul, and Ringo, and then the rest is that's my story. See.
What inspired you to play the drums upside down? I mean, really, were you really into drugs back then?
Yes and no, but we were.
Seriously.
I was in a band called Joint Session, and Joint Session.
Perfect name.
Yeah, Joint. We did our logo was the Zigzag Man, and our moniker was Joint Session. We do some mighty fine numbers, and it was a picture of a joint. We were a full-blown pot band. I'm sorry, we were playing the Hell's Angel bars all over town, back parties, and we had a hit song that was getting ready to come out before the 1972 Republican National Convention that was going to be held at the San Diego Sports Arena. And this record was written by a disc jockey at KPRI. I sang the lead vocals on it. It was all about fighting the war against the war in Vietnam, and don't let your friends go get killed in Vietnam. And it was total anti-war protest song.
Because I worked at KPRI.
I know you know the guy.
Well, I didn't work there until 1977, so I came along there. That was the really cool KPRI. Incense and blacklight posters and a lot of pot.
But the thing is so in 72, Richard Nixon had this all planned out ahead of time, because in 68, they had this big riot in Chicago, the anti-war riots. And of course, the whole world's watching. It's this giant anti-war thing. So Nixon figured, we're going to have the same thing. So I have to be tricky dick. We're going to fake the convention being in Southern California so that all the Haight-Ashbury hippies and everybody's going to converge on San Diego and plan this big riot. And at the last minute, I'm going to move the convention out of San Diego to Miami, except none of us knew that was going to happen. So we had the song ready to go. It was already getting airplay. Our record company put us up in a big house in Hollywood. We started just having drug parties. You guys are going to be the next Chicago, da-da-da-da-da. And then Nixon moves the convention to Miami, and the whole thing went down the drain. The whole thing just blew up. My wife of 2 months divorced me, ran off with another guy. The record company went down the drain. The band blew up, moved back to San Diego. And that's how, that whole scene came about. So during that, though, when we were getting ready to put the record out, our record company says, well, you got the song, you got the gimmick. You just need something that people will never forget, because you're not Chicago. You're not as good a musician. You need a gimmick. So do something no one's ever done before. And I thought, well, shoot, I'll just play the drums upside down. I'll just hang from the ceiling. And they said, well, you can't do that. I said, I bet you I can. I'll make a garage door that, starts here and goes all the way up upside down. And so I started building in 72. But that's the way that whole thing came about. But then when that band evolved into the band with Mick Mars, I still had the plans, the drawings, and I told Mick about it. I said, man, let's blow you up on stage. I said, I got the perfect diversion. When my drums start to go upside down, the spotlight's going to be on me. And as soon as my drums go upside down, you're going to be on a pinwheel, like in the circus where the knife thrower throws the knives at the lady. You're going to step back on this pinwheel and they're going to start spinning you around real slow. But as soon as the lights go up on the upside down drums, the light's going to go off on the pinwheel. They'll flip the pinwheel around to the fake side, but has a dummy on it spinning around so fast you can't tell it's Mick Mars. And as they're looking at me going upside down, as soon as the song's over, I'll dive out of my upside down drum platform, go to the front of the stage with a TNT plunger like Wile E. Coyote in the Roadrunner cartoons, push it down and just blow up the guitar player into a million pieces full of spaghetti and chicken guts and, all this kind of bones and carcass that flies into the audience. And people will take Mick Mars home with them. Little specks of blood all over him. I said, that's a show no one will ever forget. Well, needless to say, that band broke up before we ever got to that. But a buddy of mine who's a Motley Crue fan saw them in Philadelphia blow Mick Mars up on stage. I said, really? They really finished?
He took my idea.
They took because they took the upside down drum idea, but they never got it to the point where they blew up Mick Mars. And I asked him, I said, so how did they do that? And he said, well, they just wheeled this fake dummy out on the stage. You can tell it wasn't him, and then they blew it up. And I said, was it full of like spaghetti and ketchup? And yes, it was all full of junk that blew into the audience. I said, but they didn't spin him on a pinwheel, so you couldn't. So the idea was tried, but they dropped it. But a lot of their ideas came from my band, which was called White Horse. That band was once called Motley Crue, but we changed the name to White Horse. And then, of course, when that band broke up, Mick probably went to the other guys and said, well, if you look at the Netflix movie, watch the Netflix movie called The Dirt. It's the story of Motley Crue. And watch when they asked Mick Mars, so Mick, what do you think the band should be called? And all he does in the movie is hold up a sign that says Motley Crue. They don't say where it came from. They don't say what gave him the idea. And the same thing with Tommy Lee and the upside down drum thing. Hey, Tommy, where'd you get that upside down drum idea? And he says, I just dreamt it up. So, but I know where it comes from. People that know me.
Are you guys in contact today?
We haven't spoke probably in 20 years. I mean, he's always been friendly. We lived together for 4 years, almost 4 years.
Right.
Every gig we did, I drove him because he didn't have a car. We lived together in the van, on the road, on tours. I mean, we were best friends, best buddies. And, but people don't know his story because he's very private, and I call him the Howard Hughes of rock and roll. He's nobody knows anything about this guy except for he's the guitar player in Motley Crue, and where did he come from?
Right. Awesome. Tell me about what you're doing today.
Well, this is ironic because Mick Mars at 72, well, he'll be 72 years old in 2 months. I'm already 72. So for a while, we're at the same age. But at the age of 72.
In rock and roll years. Yeah, you're good.
It's like 105 in rock and roll years. But at the age of 72, he's hung it up. He's retired. He's basically backed out of Motley Crue, and he's done. At 72, I'm coming out of retirement and going on tour for the first time. And since we split playing together in 40 years. And now I got a gig coming up in Florida in February 3rd, 4th, and 5th at this big progressive rock convention. And then we've got a gig in October in Monterrey, Mexico. And I'm even doing a show this coming Thursday night at the Navajo Live, just a tune-up show. And we're opening for a band called the Stickmen, February 23rd at the Ritz Theater in Escondido. And they're a big progressive rock band. So my career is just starting at the age of 72. It's great.
That's 72 years of age.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what's the name of your new band?
Well, and that's that new band's got a ton of stories as well. We call it 19 Fingers.
Okay.
Because when I got out of music, I didn't quit music, but I started playing keyboards. In fact, you came to a couple shows. I saw my family.
Right. I would have come to more, but it was 105 at your house.
Yeah. Well, that was
We're having that heat spell.
Anyway, so I started becoming a keyboard player. And I got all these keyboards, and my son played drums, my other kids played keyboards, my wife played bass, and we started going out doing shows. We played a Padre game, we played the fair all the time, we do church gigs and da 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 da. And then when that kind of fizzled out because the kids all grew up and decided they didn't want to play in mommy and daddy's band anymore, they got their own bands. But I'm a baseball player. I still play baseball, competitive adult baseball. And in one of the games, I took a line shot on my finger. If we can see it here, and I'm not flipping the bird. This is
okay. Yeah,
but that finger doesn't bend anymore. That's it. I can't bend it.
Good thing you don't play guitar.
Yeah. Well, no, I can't play keyboards anymore. So I found that I can't play keyboards anymore because I got 9 fingers. So I decided to go back to the drums, and I found a keyboard player to play all my keyboards. And so we call ourselves 19 Fingers. He's got 10 and I got 9, and that's the name of the band. And we're a duo. He's like a Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Keith Emerson like keyboard player that can play everything. He's a young guy and he can play everything. And I play drums and sing. So Emerson, Lake and Palmer was a 3-piece, and now we're doing what they do with only 2.
Wow.
Because I sing all the parts, I play all the drums, and he plays the bass and the keyboards together. And that's why we're doing these shows, because they're going, here's this prog rock group that's only 2 people, and they're playing Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Genesis and Gentle Giant and all these crazy, nutty songs that nobody could usually do without 5 guys.
Before we stop and take a break and play a little bit of your music, tell me let's back it up a little bit to the 4-time adult baseball world champion. At 72 years of age, you still have wheels.
I hate to brag, but our manager, who was he's the 15-time adult baseball world championship manager for Barry's Athletic Supply. I've won an adult baseball world championship in the 40 and over, in the 55 and over, in the 65 and over division with this guy. And he says, Jack Valentine is the greatest over 70 baseball player on the planet. And I'm going, oh, okay, if you say so, but I know I can still run, catch, hit, and throw. So, yeah, but
wow.
When you get banged up, when you break fingers, it's starting to go down the drain pretty quick. But in fact,
how long ago did that happen? I'm sorry, I didn't even.
That was that year. That was the COVID year. The COVID year, they shut down baseball because all the high schools is where we played. So schools were shut down, but the rec fields were still open. So us baseball players had to go play the dirty word softball. So we went and played softball, and that's how I busted this finger. I'm used to catching a little hard ball. The guy hits a screaming line drive with a cannonball. These softballs are cannonballs. Hit me square in my ring finger. In the 70-over World Championships of softball, my finger swelled up so big I couldn't get in the glove. I literally played the rest of the tournament with the glove on the other hand. I played left-handed, played 5 games. I had a game-winning triple off the fence with one hand because that finger was broken, but still play. I play softball 3 days a week, baseball still 1 day a week, although we're in between seasons now. Although I got hit yesterday. The first softball game, where is it? This side? I don't know if you can see it. I get this. No, this side.
That's the glasses.
Right there. Guy hit a line drive off the ground. I tried to make a diving catch, and it short hopped and hit me square in the cheek and slid it open. That was just yesterday. I got hit in the face with a softball. So I'm still out there getting hurt, but as long as it doesn't keep me from playing the drums, I can't play keyboards, but I can still play drums. You can teach a monkey to play drums.
Yeah, and you're still doing sports officiating.
Yeah, I'm a volleyball referee. I was doing water polo, football, baseball, water polo, and softball, but now I'm just doing softball, flag football, and volleyball. Yeah. And it's funny.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's funny because the kids always come up to me and say, "You look like a rock star," And I go, "Do you ever heard of the band Motley Crue?" And they go, "No, who are they?" There's no high school kid that knows Motley Crue.
My daughter played softball for 8 years, and one day I don't know where we were, one of those hot softball fields during the summer, because that's always when they played. And we're, getting ready, and we're, hanging the bags on the fence, and, everybody's excited. The parents are all there, and here comes Blue walking up, and it's, lo and behold, it's Jack Valentine.
Yeah.
I went, oh my gosh, is there anything that you don't do?
No, and if look at the picture behind me, that's Windansea Beach. I'm a bodyboarder. I ride a bodyboard at Windansea Beach. That's the #1 professional surf spot in Southern California. I mean, all the pros come out there when the waves are big. And I'm this 72-year-old guy on a bodyboard. I mean, that's a no-no. You don't do that at Wind and Sea. But they all know me. And I told them, I said, guys, I was riding this place with your grandfather. I've been riding this place since 1962 when I was 12. Don't kick me out of here. I'm just a speed bump. If you need to run me over, go for it. But I'm out there when the waves are big. There's a GoPro that I wear out there.
Yeah.
I have the GoPro on my head, or I have it mounted in different places. But then there's a surf cam on top of one of the buildings. So when I get a good ride, I go to the surf cam and edit the surf cam into my GoPro footage. And it's really cool because you see the angle of me on the wave, and then there's that guy. I've got shots of all really great surfers at really different spots just from my GoPro annex out there. And the 10-year swell, I went out there when I was 65. And they say every 10 years one of these swells come in. I thought, well, this is my last 10-year swell because I'm not going to be doing this at 75, but we'll see.
Oh, you are. Okay, we're taking a break. We're going to take you to 19 Fingers playing Tarkus by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but this time only with two guys.
Thank you so much.
So of all the crazy and wonderful things, all mixed in a bag that you've done together in your lifetime, what did you enjoy the very most? Or is that what's coming up right now?
I miss playing because the whole time when I wasn't playing, it's like 40 years there where I didn't play. I mean, I sat in with bands in town and screwed around with this, even played in church and did things with the family. It's the audience that I miss. The applause when you look at people with tears in their eyes, and we cause that by our music. I mean, that's so heartwarming for me that if I could share something that God has given me to bring emotion out of people, I mean, that's why I'm here. And I miss that. I miss the applause, not because, oh, you're saying, Jack's great. No, I miss the applause because these people are digging this. They're getting blessed. I miss that. I miss sharing what God has given me with other people. And so now getting a chance to do that, I have tears in my eyes in rehearsal, imagining being in Florida, playing the songs we're rehearsing, because I'm going, I'm not going to be able to get through. That's why I'm wearing these glasses. When I go out there, I'm going to dress like this. I got my helmet on. I got my glasses on because I'm going to be crying my eyes out while I'm playing. I am. Tears are going to be rolling down my face because I'm going, oh, this is just fantastic.
Wow.
Tony Banks is the keyboard player in Genesis. And one of our claims to fame in 19 Fingers, as well as Emerson, Lake and Palmer, is that we play Tony Banks. Tony Banks is like Keith Emerson, one of the greatest keyboard players of all time, one of the greatest composers of all time. And if you just listen to Tony Banks by himself, take the bass, take the lead guitar, take Peter Gabriel out, just listen to Tony Banks, what he's playing. Mm-hmm. That's what we do two-piece. It's Tony Banks's keyboard parts with drums and vocals. So it's a two-piece duo doing progressive rock without the lead guitar. And it's just a total new approach to hearing some of this music from the 70s. I mean, this music was 72, 73, 74. So some of the music we play is the piano versions of Genesis. And we've got a clip of that if you want to see that.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. In fact, let's take one more break and let's play it right now. This is Colony of Slippermen. these long pieces of music. And I mean, this is back at a time where, songs weren't cut down to under 3 minutes for top 40 radio. Songs were masterpieces, and you knew the different parts and the harmonies and how the whole thing came together. How did you come up for the music for that? Do you sit down and transcribe the whole thing? And because I'm knowing you're playing it to the T.
I play by ear. Anything that I hear, I can play because I just listen to it and play it. But now Ben, and his name's Ben Shire, I should give him a plug. Ben Shire is this young guy that I met on Cruise to the Edge. He's a reader. So he can get the music transcribed and just read it and play it. And that's way better than by ear. Except we get in a lot of arguments because I'll say, that's not right. And he says, yes, it is. I say, no, it's not. And I say, that's not right. Listen to the record. And he says, look at the music. And we listen to the record. And guess what? The writing is wrong. They haven't written it correctly. And
that does happen, doesn't it?
Now he trusts my ear. If I say that's not right.
Well, that's a compliment. Wrong, how old is he?
He's in his, I'm not sure exactly, his 40s, maybe mid to late 40s.
Well, you got to tell him he's got to listen to his elders.
There you go. Yeah. I like that one.
Jack, I'm curious, how did Mick Mars make it into your band?
My band had a lead guitar player that I'd played with since high school, 3 different bands with this guy. I won't use his name because now he's a nice guy. But back then he was a crook. He was stealing from the band. We knew he was stealing from the band. We caught him many times just in criminal situations. We said, we got to get rid of this guy. But he's the leader of the band. He's the guy that hires, that all the club owners know. And we can't audition any guitar players or he'll find out about it. He'll most literally probably kill us. So we had to find an unknown guy that no one had ever heard of. And there was this homeless person living in a nightclub, literally living in a shed behind the club that would play guitar. And when our guitar player wasn't around, we snuck him in and taught him some of our songs. And we thought, you know what? We need to take this guy out and go on the road with him and get away from our leader and get away from this guy that's cheating on us and work this new guy in. So Bob Deal is his name back then, was destitute, homeless guy who had one set of clothes and broken equipment. We brought him in the band, put him on allowance, bought him equipment, got him clothes, fed him and clothed him and housed him for close to 4 years. And took this nobody and had him replace our leader. And it was, we needed him as much as he needed us. But the band at that time was called White Horse, and we were already a name act in LA. We were opening big shows, and we'd done tours before he even got in the band.
So that's Mick Mars' real name.
Bob Deal, yeah. He changed it to Mick Mars. And again, he changed his name constantly to hide from the police because he always had warrants out on his arrest for child support. He had 3 children. I mean, 23 years old and he's got 3 kids and he can't afford to pay for any of them. And he always had to change his name to hide out from the cops because he was always getting arrested. I had to bail him out of jail twice for being arrested for, warrants on his for child support and alimony back bills.
That is an incredible story.
Yeah.
Tell me about your book.
My book, Motley Rock Stories. It's in the book.
Oh, you just happen to have it.
Just happen to have it. I've got the audio version here.
Yeah.
And I don't make anything on these books. In fact, if anybody wants the audio book, I'll give it to you for free. Just, But the book, I don't even know if you can buy it anymore. It might still be out there. But the whole story's in Motley Rock Stories. And, it's right there. And Mick Mars, I did an interview with him after he got famous, and he tells the story right out of his mouth. If you go online, you can find it, or find me. Find Jack Valentine on YouTube. There's so much about me from Sweden, because Sweden is the Motley Crue capital of the world. They put on a 2-month-long convention in 2017 and had me send them audio and pictures and all this stuff about Mick Mars. And so it's all over the internet. If you can find, Jack Valentine, you'll see a lot of this stuff in documentation. VH1 did a story. It's been in Rolling Stone, Modern Drum Magazine. It's been all over the place, but I don't promote it because I don't want to be famous. I'm in disguise right now. Nobody knows who I look like, So.
Oh my gosh.
Nicky had a vision of this band.
It was his concerted effort to put the ultimate rock band together.
He had found an amazing drummer.
The problem was just trying to find a great guitarist.
His real name was Robert Anthony Deal.
He grew up in Garden Grove, California.
He didn't like the initials RAD, R-A-D.
He was always coming up with another name every week to be called instead of being called Bob Deal.
When he hit Mick Mars, it just kind of came out and it stuck.
We had a band called White Horse back in the mid-'70s. Mick was a guitar player that followed our band around, and he was just dying to get in our group.
We were playing Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin. Mick would come around to where we would play, and he would just stand there and look at us.
He was introverted and shy.
Mick had 2 children by his first wife. He had to make money so he could support the kids.
He didn't have a dime to his name. His amp was blown up, his guitar had a broken neck, and the guy had 1 set of clothes.
But it didn't matter. I was immediately blown away by the way he played.
Let's turn out the lights. This guy's just got it.
He added a dimension to the band that we didn't have before.
We knew we were going to be famous. We were in a record deal, and our managers saw disco as the next big thing. We want you guys to put 3 disco songs on your album. Mick and I said, no, we're not doing that.
We were a ballsy rock and roll band, and we weren't going to settle for anything less than that. Things just kind of fell apart after that.
Mick and Kenny continued on for a few years in Vendetta. Pretty soon that band fizzled out, and Mick was back on the streets destitute.
I don't know how Mick survived. He hooked up with another gal. He had another baby.
All of his bills started piling up. He was starting this pattern of failure. And I think he just saw, hey, I'm never going to be able to get out of this if I don't change something.
Mick had put an ad in the recycler stating that he was a loud, rude, aggressive guitar player looking for same. And he got a phone call from Nikki Sixx.
Mick showed up, and that was it.
Nikki and Tommy thought Mick had sort of an alien look, and that was appealing to them.